Gale-force winds howled across the creaking steel expanse of the carrier's flight deck, tearing at loose tarps and sending salt spray arcing into the darkened sky. Amid the chaos, 80-year-old Ingrid Hayes fumbled with her faded flight gloves, heart hammering as she climbed into the cockpit of the decommissioned Skyhawk. Each morning, Ingrid arrived before dawn, her joints stiff but determined. She polished her grandfather's compass handed down from her sniper father and ran her fingers over the engraving, "Steady aim, steady heart." Though they'd grounded her years ago, she still calibrated instrument panels and patched hydraulic lines, moving with the precise efficiency her elite medic mother taught her in childhood. She remembered the crunch of gravel at boot camp and the hush that fell when she walked into a hangar full of admiring pilots. The routine was comforting until today. As Ingrid tightened a loose hose clamp, she noticed the black funnel of the storm coiling on the horizon like a living thing. An officer barked through the rain. "All non-essential personnel clear the deck. Secure the aircraft." But Ingrid only heard distant echoes as she secured her headset and flipped the power switch. If you've ever been underestimated, an emergency alarm shrieked. Through the wind-blurred canopy, Ingrid saw crew members scrambling toward the hangar. Lightning forked across the sky. A radio crackled, "Super-Typhoon approaching faster than predicted. All flights grounded." The words hit her like a physical blow, but Ingrid's blood ran hot with long-suppressed urgency. Comment with, "If you believe experience outmatches youth." She keyed the mic. "Hayes requesting takeoff clearance. I'm not leaving that deck until every soul aboard this carrier is safe." The voice on the radio paused, astonished by the tremor of steel and conviction behind her words. Ingrid's hands flew over the throttle quadrant, recalling midnight drills and storm penetration simulations she'd led decades ago. The Skyhawk thundered to life, its engines growling in her aged ears. Winds slammed the aircraft sideways. Ingrid fought the yoke with every ounce of muscle memory she thought long gone. She banked hard, weaving through towering gusts as the deck crew frantically signaled below. Each movement was precise, born of years spent balancing life and death at 30,000 feet. Tag, someone who never quits, even when everyone says it's too late. Ingrid peeled away from the deck, the carrier swallowed by sheets of vertical rain. Lightning illuminated her lined face, lips pressed in fierce concentration. In that flash, she felt her father's steady aim guiding her, her mother's calm resolve fortifying her. She was no ghost, no relic. She was a storm rider, and this Typhoon was her final proving ground. As the Skyhawk climbed into the swirling vortex, the world below vanished in thunder and spray. Ingrid's heart thundered in time with the engines. Would she tame the Super-Typhoon long enough to secure emergency communications for the stranded crew? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. The Skyhawk's nose punched through the cloud wall like a spear thrown by fate itself. Ingrid Hayes tightened her grip on the stick as turbulence thrashed the airframe. Every rivet, every bolt in the cockpit groaned under the strain of wind shear and pressure gradients that felt like they'd ripped the wings from the fuselage. Rain streaked sideways across the canopy, and the altimeter needle jumped erratically as if unsure of its own numbers. But Ingrid's eyes stayed fixed forward, her spine pressed against the seat like the old days when she flew recon over live war zones while still being called the girl with the weird shoulders by half her class in the academy. They didn't know those shoulders were perfectly calibrated to manage recoil and G-force alike. Now, decades later, they bore the full weight of an airborne Typhoon. She flipped her secondary cum switch and punched through the static. "Hayes to tower. You've got 27 personnel unaccounted for on Deck 3. Get me a precise location." "Grid. I'll need a channel to Ops Command and the emergency cum buoy." "Hayes, you're not authorized. That plane doesn't even have a recon package. I made my own." Ingrid toggled the underside camera turret she had restored. By hand salvaged from a downed bird in '89. Rewired with modern optics she'd traded months of retirement pay for. She tilted the lens toward the carrier deck far below, now shrinking into a blur of gray and chaos. Sending feed now. And get me topside damage control. I saw a breach on the northeast catwalk. A long pause, then, copy that, Hayes. Video. Link is stable. Adjusting satellite relay. standby. Command is requesting full name and rank confirmation. She scoffed under her breath. Captain Ingrid Hayes, retired. Serial number 84049CH. Last cleared for flight in 1983. Last needed in 2025. Put me through. Static fell away. Then a new voice filled her headset, rough, weathered, tinged with disbelief. Hayes? That you? She blinked. Miller, you're flying again? I'm flying still. He laughed, a sound that cut through the storm. Then let's get to work. Drop a, if you believe retirement's just another word for being sidelined. As she maneuvered between bands of dense rain, Ingrid opened the side panel of the cockpit. She pulled out a bundle of hand-labeled flashcards, data she'd gathered over the years on wind patterns, thermal shifts, microbursts. Her handwriting danced across the cards in blue ink. She clipped them to the HUD brace. One card caught her eye. Never fly into a storm unless someone's still waiting on the other side. She smiled. From the corner of her eye, the sensor alert blinked red. Something moved inside the Typhoon. Signature too slow for a lightning strike. Too erratic for debris. What the hell? She zoomed the turret. A life raft, mitter, spinning, upside down, thrown from one of the upper decks. And inside it, a hand. Command, I've got visual on what looks like emergency personnel lost from the portside hangar. Lifeboat breach. I'm going after it. You're not equipped for rescue ops. Watch me. With a sudden dive, the Skyhawk screamed downward into the wind funnel, Ingrid throttling back enough to maintain stability, but not lose altitude. Her bones groaned with the G-forces, but her heart was steel. The raft tumbled closer. She matched its spiral. Wings tore at both of them. She slammed her landing gear toggle open, not to land, but to wedge the lifeboat between the wheels. Timing had to be perfect. Closer. 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 Now. The raft struck. The sickening jolt. Ingrid felt the impact through her whole frame, but the body inside the raft remained motionless. Contact made. I've got the raft secured barely. Requesting deck clearance. Emergency evac priority. We read you, Hayes. We've got a line ready. Coming slow. But the storm had other plans. Lightning ripped across the clouds, temporarily blinding. Her instruments flashed warnings. Altitude dropping fast. Wind shear kicked the Skyhawk sideways. The raft nearly broke free. Ingrid gritted her teeth. Not today, not like this. She cut speed to just above stall, bringing the nose around. In a full arc toward the carrier's faint outline below. The lights on the deck flickered through the storm. Her only beacon. Drop of, if you've ever done something insane, just because it was right. Feet above the deck. The Skyhawk hovered like a marionette straining at strings. Deck crew scrambled. With safety lines. 2 men jumped for the raft, hooking it mid-air as Ingrid held the plane steady. She watched through the rear view mirror. The crew pulled the unconscious figure free. A cheer broke through her headset. Raft secured. Man's alive. Looks like ... our traffic tech. He must have been tossed over during the first burst. Ingrid exhaled for the first time in minutes. But then another signal, a flare. From the farthest edge of the flight deck. Right near the fuel dump station. Miller, patch me through to deck chief. Go. There's someone else. By the fuel tanks. No way anyone's still there. We cleared that sector. Then explain the flare. A long beat. Then, God help us, that's Commander Thorne. He must have gone back for the comms relay box. Ingrid checked her fuel, half a tank. Enough for one more stunt, Maybe she brought the Skyhawk around. Hayes, Miller's voice came low and careful. You don't have to do this. I've never had to. I chose to. As she accelerated toward the edge of the deck, the Typhoon lashed with renewed fury. But Ingrid was already airborne again, nose tipped forward, eyes blazing. And this time, the storm blinked first. The second takeoff was nothing short of suicidal. The tail of the Skyhawk skidded just feet from the carrier's edge as Ingrid fought the crosswind. Her tires lifted off with a jolt, then dipped again under a gust that slammed the underbelly. The cockpit rattled like a tin shed in a hurricane, but she pulled hard to the right, keeping the aircraft aligned with the dwindling visibility of the flight deck. This time, she wasn't climbing high. She couldn't risk the upper wind bands again. The Skyhawk skimmed just above the roiling sea, prowling the perimeter of the deck like a mother wolf sniffing for her lost cub. Haze, deck visuals gone. Storm's taking the satellite feed offline. You're on your own. Ingrid didn't respond. She was too busy narrowing her eyes against the blur of sleet pelting her canopy. Every vibration of the fuselage, every sputter from the engine, was logged and interpreted instantly by the instinct she'd honed over decades. Her hand hovered over the flare trigger, just in case Thorne had the presence of mind to fire another one. Then she saw it, just barely a glimmer. Not from a flare, but from a wristwatch, near the fuel dump station. Amid shattered pallets and twisted safety railing, a figure lay curled around a fireproof satchel, one arm draped limply in a puddle of aviation fuel. Command visual acquired. One man down, possibly conscious. I'm going in. Negative, Haze. Wind readings are past tolerance. Abort. I repeat, abort. She clicked off the radio. Droppa. If you've ever ignored the manual to save a life. She executed a banking maneuver so tight that the wings flexed audibly. The Skyhawk swept low, gear extended, canopy almost scraping the deck's edge. She hovered above the motionless form of Commander Thorne. There was no time to land. No way to reach him physically. But she had something else. The old tow cable. She reached under her seat and yanked the release on a coiled line she'd stashed during her midnight tune-ups. She hadn't told anyone about it. Protocol would have thrown her out of the hangar. It was meant for dragging debris. But today, it was going to haul a man. She popped the external hatch, leaned her body out of the cockpit into the storm, and dropped the hook. Rain blurred everything. Wind tore at her eyes. But Thorne moved. He saw the cable. With effort that made Ingrid's throat clench, he looped the carabiner to his flight harness, then slumped forward. She retracted slowly, the Skyhawk whining in protest. Thorne dragged along. The slick deck, catching on a raised lip of metal, then breaking free. Inch by inch, she reeled him toward safety, every second a risk of the cable snapping or the tail fin clipping the railing. Then, two deckhands burst from a hatch. They grabbed. Thorne unhooked the line and disappeared with him into the bulkhead. Commander secured. A voice crackled in her headset. You did it, Haze. Get back now before the storm takes you next. But it already was. The moment she turned nose up to lift away, the wind howled sideways with a fury unmatched all night. The Skyhawk lurched. A sudden burst from a downdraft pitched her left wingtip into a fuel barrel, screeching metal. Flame. Ingrid. Miller screamed. She didn't answer. The left wing ignited, spitting fire from taut aluminum. The Skyhawk wobbled, coughing black smoke. I'm losing port control. Hydraulics gone. I've got 5, maybe 10 seconds of climb left. Ditch it. Ditch in the water. We've got boats ready. No, she said with her right hand. She reached over to the auxiliary panel, a kill switch she'd wired years ago, meant for emergency landings in rough terrain. She pulled it. The right aileron locked. She twisted the yoke, using the fire crippled. Wing as a rudder. Haze, what are you doing? I'm taking her out where she won't be a hazard to the deck. Don't be a hero, Ingrid. We need you alive. She smiled bitterly. No one needed me at all until 20 minutes ago. That's not true. The Skyhawk dipped lower, smoke pouring from its side. Below, the raging ocean waited like a hungry beast. Droppa, if you've ever felt like they only remember you when they're desperate. She shut down the engine mid-flight. The sudden silence was jarring. The aircraft coasted, ghost-like, above the sea, fire trailing like the tail of a comet. Ingrid reached under her seat again and pulled a small cylinder. From her flight bag, a buoyant data canister. It held everything: video logs, telemetry, personal logs, and a message she'd recorded months ago, long before the storm. She kissed the casing. "You've got one job, don't sink." Then she tossed it. The canister hit the water and bobbed away. The carrier was barely visible behind her. But she angled the Skyhawk downward, slowly, purposefully. She thought of her father's advice. If you're going to go, make sure you leave something worth remembering. The sea welcomed her. Impact. Then nothing. Silence. But then a gasp. Air. The emergency oxygen line had triggered on impact. Her seat had ejected milliseconds before the Skyhawk folded into the waves. She was alive, bruised, cut, but breathing. Floating. Double quotes Ingrid. "Come in." "This is Miller. Say something, gammit." She fumbled for her vest's beacon. Click. A chirp. Back on the carrier, a red dot appeared on the rescue display. "She's alive." Cheers erupted on deck. 10 minutes later, a drone dropped a rescue raft. She crawled in, shivering, soaked, and laughing, not from relief, from vindication. She'd been told she was too old, too brittle, too retired. But tonight, when the carrier faced the full fury of the Super-Typhoon, it wasn't a fresh-faced recruit or a tech-driven marvel who saved the day. It was her. Command. She rasped into the rescue radio. "I've got something to say about next year's flight simulator curriculum. Drop it if you're done letting anyone else define your limits." Back on the deck, soaked through his uniform, Miller stared out into the sea as the rescue team hoisted Ingrid up. Then he turned to the command screen. "Bring up the last 10 minutes of her flight recorder," he said. A tech looked confused. "That aircraft is at the bottom of the sea." Miller grinned. She dropped the canister. "Find it. Somewhere, amidst the waves still churning from the storm's dying fury." A small orange cylinder blinked red. Alive. Just like her. The room had changed. Ingrid stood in the old tactical simulator bay, the walls lined with screens that once flickered through outdated drills. Everything smelled like dust and solder, abandoned, but not forgotten. She'd trained dozens in this room, back when simulations were crude and instructors still wore oil-stained boots. Now, the new command team clustered behind her in silence. "Run it," she said. The screen surged to life. The simulated sky filled with stealth drones, sleek, invisible shapes with angular wings. The same signature profile that was now haunting the carrier's perimeter. Ingrid's hands hovered over the old analog interface. Not touchscreens, real toggles, dials, resistance. You could feel. Her fingers moved with memory, adjusting the flank sensitivity, tuning thermal overlays, launching predictive spread patterns. Miller leaned closer. "You still remember this system? I helped build it. Drop it if you know theirs. No upgrade better than experience." The simulated jets executed a tail chase vector. Ingrid's responses weren't textbook, they were anticipatory. Instead of following one target, she read the arc of all three, predicted their convergence, cut across a ghost trail rather than chasing it. She was flying inside the intent of the pilot, not just reacting, but preempting. The simulation ended. 3 kills. Flawless. Kepler rubbed his face. Those weren't even engagement drones. Those were based on 5th-gen stealth fighters with adaptive AI overlays. "How?" "She flew the pattern they didn't know we had," Miller said softly. Ingrid turned from the console. "You're not going to out-tech these. They're faster, they're smarter, but they're still predictable because they're not human. If you want to win, You fly wrong. You fly off pattern. You fly like someone who's lost the manual and still came home. No one spoke. Reassign me, she said. Not as a pilot. As your Ghost Ops trainer. Kepler hesitated. You'll be a liability in the field. I'm not asking to fly. I'm offering to make sure they can. He nodded. By the next morning, the sim room was packed. Lieutenants, ensigns, one civilian contractor with drone expertise, even a weather tech. They were all there for one reason: the woman who flew into a Super-Typhoon in a plane older than their instructors. Ingrid started simply. She walked to the board and drew two overlapping ovals. This is what they teach you. A mirrored pursuit pattern. Tactical symmetry. She drew a jagged arrow breaking that oval. This is what I teach. Asymmetry. Broken logic. Pattern disruption. You don't win by playing fair. You win by showing them something that doesn't make sense until it works. Drop a if you've ever won because you refused to play their game. Then she walked them through her own mission frame by frame, every risky bank, every stall bluff, every time she'd used the storm as camouflage. She taught them how to pivot mid-turn using turbulence pockets, how to fly sloppy on purpose, so automated defenses would misread threat levels. And then she'd drop the bombshell. Tomorrow, she said, we'll fly against the real thing. Gasps. You can't mean. They're coming back, you know it. And next time, they won't be testing the fence. They'll breach it. Kepler stepped forward, expression grim. We just received recon confirmation. The stealth contacts have tripled, now 9 signatures. Tight wedge formation. Closing fast. Miller swore under his breath. Ingrid's voice didn't waver. I'll run ghost coordination. You'll fly. You sure you're ready? Miller asked. No, but I never was. Doesn't change a thing. That night, she returned to her bunk and opened a locker, long sealed. Inside, her father's sniper scope, her mother's field journal, a fragment of her first wing pin, and one faded photograph. It showed her, 27, grinning atop an F-8. Crusader, grease on her cheek. Fire in her eyes. Below the photo, someone had scrawled in permanent marker, unbreakable, uncheckable, unseen. She whispered it like a prayer. Then she slept, not deeply, not peacefully, but ready. Drop a if your past still fuels the fire in your chest. Dawn came with alarms. The carrier shuddered. Screams in the hallway, pilots bolting from bunks. Klaxons. Shrieking. The sky was red, not from blood. From infrared pulses. Stealth drones scanning, mapping, preparing. The battle had begun. Ingrid stood in ops control, headset in place. All wings, this is Ghost One, she said. You'll call me Stormhost. If you die today, it won't be because you weren't ready. The line crackled with silence. Then Miller's voice. Copy, Stormhost. Dozens echoed him. She mapped the drone's arc across the airspace, anticipated the false feints, predicted the curve in the AI's decision-making tree. She called out diversions before they happened. Ghost 3, go low. Ghost 9, break right. Do not follow that decoy flare. It's a trap. One drone exploded in the distance. Then another, but one slipped through. A direct hit on the starboard. Tower. Fire. Debris. Panic. Drop a if you've ever watched chaos unfold and still refuse to look away. Ingrid. Kepler barked. We're losing ground. Pull them back. No, she said. Trust them, she called out again. Ghost 5, rotate 220. Let them chase. Ghost 6, blind spot, intercept now. A sonic boom cracked the air. Another drone down. The rest began to retreat. Not from weakness, not from confusion. They didn't understand the tactics. Couldn't calculate the improvisation. Couldn't anticipate Ingrid's chaos math. And that made her lethal. After 17 minutes, the sky cleared. 9 enemy drones destroyed or retreating. 0 casualties. The deck erupted in cheers. But Ingrid didn't celebrate. She looked at the screen and frowned. "Kepler," she said, "bring up satellite tracking. I want to know where they ran to." He nodded, already typing. Miller stepped beside her. "That was beautiful." "No, that was the first move." On screen, a new signature appeared. "Larger, slower, carrier class. Unidentified." Ingrid's eyes narrowed. They weren't testing our defenses, they were marking coordinates. Miller paled. "For what?" "For whatever that is." She exhaled slowly. "I hope you're ready to learn faster than I did." The medbay smelled like iodine, old leather, and salt. Ingrid lay still on the cot, Ford dripping into her arm. Her uniform was torn, salt-caked, and reeked of aviation fuel, but her eyes tracked every movement around her. She watched the young medic fumbling with a tablet. "You need to eat," the boy stammered. "Vitals say you're dehydrated. Also, a ... command wants to debrief you soon." Ingrid slowly turned her head toward him, raising one graying eyebrow. "What's your name, son?" He swallowed. "Adams, private second class." "Well, Adams," she said, voice dry as wind over gravel, "I'll eat when you find me coffee. And I'll debrief after someone explains why Thorne was left out there to die." He blinked, unsure whether to salute or run. Across the ship, command officers scrambled to piece together the data Ingrid's flight recorder had transmitted before the Skyhawk hit the sea. Word had spread fast. Old-timers wept. New recruits stared like she was a ghost out of legend. She wasn't a legend. She was furious. "Drop. If you know some things, just don't run without the old guard." Miller entered the room without knocking, soaked and pale. He hadn't changed out of his rain-drenched flight jacket. "You look like a shipwreck," she murmured. "You crashed into the sea and you're making jokes." "I wasn't joking." He exhaled slowly and sat in the chair beside her. For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the slow beep of the monitor beside her bed. Finally he said, "Thorne's stable. Busted ribs, some lung bruising, but he's conscious." "He told the team what you did." Ingrid turned her eyes to the ceiling. "And he said no one else would have made that rescue in time. Said you didn't just pilot through the storm, you bent it out of your way." Her lips twitched. "Damn right." There was a knock at the doorway. A tall, narrow-shouldered officer stepped in, silver bar glinting. Lieutenant Kepler. Younger than most of her kitchen appliances. Eyes cold, posture rigid. "Captain Hayes," he said without warmth. "I've been asked to conduct the initial inquiry into your unauthorized flight." Adams fumbled with his tablet. "Sir, stand down, Private." Ingrid slowly sat up, wincing. "You want to talk regulation, Lieutenant?" "Yes, specifically, why a retired officer commandeered restricted equipment during a lockdown and nearly caused a secondary explosion near volatile fuel reserves." "Nearly?" He hesitated. "Because I didn't, and because I pulled 2 men off a death sentence you weren't even aware existed." Kepler cleared his throat. "Your actions may have violated multiple protocol tiers. There will be an internal review." "Good." Her voice cut like ice. "I'd love to review how no one noticed a goddamn commander missing during a full lockdown. Drop a if you've ever had to teach your boss how to do their job." Kepler flushed. "This isn't about blame. It's about procedure." "No, Lieutenant, it's about responsibility. And I've got more flying in one fingernail than your entire resume." Miller leaned forward. "With respect, sir. We both saw what she did. That's not something you learn in simulations. You can't teach that with VR. Either you've been forged by storms, or you haven't." Kepler looked between them, then exhaled. "We'll reconvene later." He turned and walked out. Adams whispered, "Geez." Ingrid relaxed against the pillow again. "Don't worry. He'll come around. They always do when they need something." By dusk she was upright, weak but walking. The wind had dropped. The ocean finally stilled. The storm had broken apart and scattered like defeated armies. She made her way to Hangar 3, where the twisted wreckage of her Skyhawk had been brought aboard. It lay in pieces, burned, bent, but intact enough to be recognizable, and beside it, resting on a canvas tarp, was the data canister. A young technician stood nearby, transfixed by the playback. Ingrid stepped beside him. "What are you watching?" He jumped. "Ma'am, your footage from the flight." It single quotes us like a masterclass. "Your counter thrust on the second pass? The torque compensation during the cable drag? I've never seen anyone fly like that." She gave him a tired smile. "That's because your instructors don't teach it. They don't know it. They haven't had to navigate with half a panel offline and a fire in the left wing. What they teach is theory. What I fly is life." The technician hesitated. "Could you just? Thought you'd never ask. Drop a if you believe the best teachers are forged, not hired." Over the next 48 hours, Ingrid became a quiet presence on the carrier. Not officially reinstated, not in any chain of command, but always around. She started by helping the tech teams review her black box footage. Then she slipped into simulator briefings, watching young pilots run scenarios. Then came the day when she stepped up and interrupted a trainee mid-drill. "Try it again," she said. "But this time, drop your airspeed before the lateral turn. You're overcompensating, which means you'll stall on the third loop." The instructor frowned. "Captain Hayes, with respect, I know what the manual says. I wrote the one you're using." The trainee tried again and nailed it. Within a week, she had a dozen unofficial students. Within 2 weeks, command relented. They issued her a temporary advisory status. Within 3, she had a dedicated room, a call sign registry, and a list of students vying for her approval. They called her Storm Host, and she hated it. "Storm Host?" she muttered. "Sounds like a bad energy drink." Miller chuckled. "Yeah, but it's yours now." She rolled her eyes. "Better than Granny Jet. Drop a if you think wisdom should come with its own call sign." But beneath the jokes, she saw something she hadn't in years. Respect, not performative, not nostalgic. Earned. Real. But just when the sea had calmed and routine began to return, the satellite alert klaxon sounded across the carrier. 3 piercing tones. Not weather. Hostile. Contact. Everyone froze. On the screen above command, 3 red markers bloomed across the east quadrant. Unidentified aircraft. Approaching fast. 2. Fast. Scramblers were dispatched. Fighters primed. Ingrid stood behind the glass, eyes narrowing. "No response to hail," a comms officer said. "And wait. They're cloaked. Heat sigs don't match any known allies." Miller looked to Ingrid. "What do you see?" he asked. She didn't blink. "I see a test." "A test? They're not attacking. They're probing. This is a recon pattern, controlled distance, coordinated sweeps. They're mapping our blind spots." Kepler stepped forward. "We've never seen a signature like this before." She crossed her arms. "Then it's time you learned how to fight something you've never seen." Her voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Bring up the old stealth pursuit sim. The one with the 45-degree tail chase vector. That model's obsolete. So am I, apparently, and yet here we are." They hesitated, then obeyed. Ingrid stared out the glass again. The sky was no longer the enemy. It was a puzzle, and she was going to solve it before the next wave hit. The foreign carrier loomed like a shadow on the edge of the world. Even in grainy satellite infrared, it was unmistakable, larger than any nation's known fleet. Sleek, low profile, minimal radar cross-section, and silent, no call signs, no IFF broadcast. Just a dark hulk gliding across contested waters with surgical precision. Ingrid stood in the command center, arms crossed, as the intel scrolled across the screen. No flags, no transponders, and no recorded registry. Kepler said. Voice taut. It's not part of any known fleet. It's a ghost. Ingrid's eyes narrowed. Then I guess we're speaking the same language. Miller tapped a few keys, enhancing the profile. Who builds a stealth-capable mobile airfield with launch decks and heat-baffled bays? And doesn't tell the world? She leaned closer. Someone who doesn't want to be noticed until it's too late. Drop of if you've ever had to fight what wasn't supposed to exist. Across the bay, the new recruits watched the footage in stunned silence. Some had trained for months, others only weeks. None had faced anything like this. Ingrid turned to them. You all flew beautifully today, but what's coming? That's not a test. That's a campaign. Adams raised his hand. Ma'am. Are we really going to fight that? Ingrid nodded. You're not fighting the carrier. You're fighting the minds that built it. And minds like that don't waste their second move. Kepler stepped forward. Command has issued DEFCON 2 for this sector. All leave is canceled. All birds are on standby. Intercepts authorized if the ghost vessel crosses line Delta. Miller frowned. That's a thin line. It's our line, Ingrid said. That night, the hangar buzzed with a different kind of energy. Not fear. Not even dread. Readiness. Ingrid walked the length of the simulator bay, now upgraded with her tactical overlays. Trainees drilled asymmetrical dogfights. Some practiced blind approach routines. Others studied her flight path through the Typhoon. She stopped behind one young woman hunched over a topography sim. Name? Ingrid asked. Rodriguez, ma'am, ensign. Why'd you stall in Quadrant 3? I panicked. The target banked outside my FOV. I lost it. Ingrid took the stick. She flew the same run, but inverted. Blind, and still nailed the intercept. You don't fly with your eyes, she said. You fly with your memory. Picture where they're going, not where they are. Again, Rodriguez tried. Better this time. No stall. Good. Keep pushing. Droppa, if you've ever learned something real outside the rules. As midnight rolled in, Ingrid returned to the deck. Wind still moaned through the rails. The sea glistened with the reflection of clouds and tactical lights. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the ghost ship drifted like a wolf waiting for the right throat to tear. Miller found her there. Can't sleep either? He asked. Nope, too quiet. He handed her a thermal mug. Coffee. She sipped. You still make it weak. He chuckled. Yeah, well, you still make everything sound like the end of the world. Because sometimes it is. They stood in silence for a while. Then Miller asked what no one had yet dared do. Why'd you stay, Ingrid? After all these years. After they sidelined. You, retired you. After the flight bans. After they forgot. She looked out at the sea. The wind tugged her hair. Her eyes stayed fixed. Because one day, they'd need a pilot who'd already crashed and still came back. Droppa, if you've ever returned when they thought you were finished. At 3:47 hours. The alarm screamed. All hands on deck. The ghost carrier had crossed line Delta. Radar pinged 12 launches. Fast. Unmarked. Silent. But this time, Ingrid was ready. She was already in ops when the first signal came through. Stormhost to command. Ghost Squadron is up. Repeat, we are in the air. One by one, her trainees took flight. No seasoned aces, no command veterans. Just kids she'd carved into Storm flyers. The sky lit up with contrails and signal bursts. Kepler stared at the radar. 12 versus 12. No, Ingrid said. 12 versus us. She guided the team from the tower, voice calm, precise. Every call, every maneuver, tailored to each pilot's style. She read the enemy's AI maneuvers like sheet music. Predicted their flanks, their retreats, their over-dash corrections. Then one enemy jet dove too fast toward the carrier itself. Incoming strike. They're targeting the flight deck. Ingrid's voice didn't rise. Ghost 7, invert. Ghost 3, cut your burn. Ghost 10, ride her wing now. The maneuver was suicidal, but it worked. Ghost 7 collided mid-air with the inbound drone, ejecting just in time. The drone disintegrated in a fireball. Parachute bloomed behind the cloud. Cheers in the tower. But then something worse. Second wave not 12 not even aircraft, but jamming pulses, communications went dark. HUDs blinked out. Guidance systems died. Panic gripped the air. Ingrid snatched the analog line wired through the old fail-safe system. The line that still ran. From the old radar rig, Stormhost to all wings, fly blind. Follow protocol Delta Charlie, no tech, just instinct. They listened. Every trainee used dead reckoning, fuel readings, wind patterns. Gut sense, they didn't just survive, they hunted. 6 enemy craft, destroyed. The others turned back. The second wave failed, and the ghost carrier retreated. Again. Droppa. If you still believe human grit beats machine perfection. The next morning, the deck was quiet again. Ingrid stood beside the wreckage of Ghost 7's bird. The trainee had survived. Minor injuries. Already asking when she could fly again. Kepler approached slowly. He saluted. You were right, he said. We weren't ready. But now. Maybe we're becoming something else. She said nothing. He handed her a folder. What's this? She asked. Full reinstatement. With rank. Command wants you back. Not just here, everywhere. They want you to help write the next doctrine. She opened it. Her name, her serial, her wings. I don't want ceremony, she said. Then don't. Have one. She nodded. Later, as the sun rose behind them, she walked the deck in silence. Alone. She passed young pilots who straightened when they saw her. Techs, who nodded with quiet awe. And at the end of the deck, she stood still. Beyond the horizon, the ghost carrier was still out there. Still waiting. She didn't fear it. Because now, it feared her. The command center had never been this quiet. Ingrid sat alone before the main operations table. Fingers steepled under her chin as multiple screens replayed the last 48 hours of combat footage. Drones shattered mid-air. Rookie pilots outmaneuvering stealth fighters. Thermal traces of the unidentified ghost carrier weaving out of missile lock zones. It was a masterpiece. It was also just the beginning. Captain Hayes. Came a voice from the doorway. Kepler. His posture had shifted since her reinstatement, less rigid, more purposeful. She caught the brief hesitation in his step, like a man unsure whether to interrupt a holy rite. You're not interrupting, she said, eyes still fixed to the footage. He exhaled, stepped in. Command has reviewed your proposal. She gave a dry smile. Let me guess. They want more metrics, graphs, color-coded projections. They want you to head a special division. That made her look up. A permanent one? Yes, training. Engagement theory. Off-book ops. Full access to all black box archives and experimental scenario simulators. Budget? Unlimited. Droppa, if you've ever waited your whole life to hear someone say you were right. She leaned back. In her chair, expression unreadable. You're sure they want me? You're the only one who's ever beat that stealth carrier. Twice. You turned an undertrained unit into a strike force. The brass isn't just impressed. They single quotes read ... Terrified. Good. Fear is honest. Kepler hesitated. There's more. Of course there is. They want you to name the unit. She stood and walked slowly to the wall where a faded photo hung. One most people ignored. A framed image of the first all-female auxiliary flight team ever deployed in a combat theater. Her mother among them. Under the photo was a quote, "Valor doesn't age, it evolves." She nodded once. Call it VALOR 0. Within 72 hours, the top deck of the carrier transformed. What had once been storage compartments and overflow. Bunk space was turned into a dedicated training hub. Glass-walled observation decks. Simulators augmented with AI flight anomaly libraries. Soundproofed tactical brief bays. A steel plaque above the main door read, Unit 0, first in. Last Ute, the pilots weren't the usual hand-picked elite. They were misfits, dropouts from elite academies, flight techs who'd failed the medicals. Navigation experts turned away for psychological anomalies. All invited by name. By Ingrid. She remembered their files. Every one of them. People like her, discarded until desperation pulled them back. If you believe broken tools still carve the best shapes. Rodriguez returned. First, still bruised from ejecting. Eyes sharper than ever. Then came Coyle, the weather tech who predicted drone exhaust plumes based on pressure shifts. Then Adams, now promoted, who quietly ran endurance drills twice a day before each sim. One by one, they came. Unit 0 wasn't official, wasn't in the books. But they trained like war was 5 minutes away. Because it was. Miller found Ingrid late one evening, kneeling by a disassembled targeting module. Her sleeves were rolled up, hair pinned behind her head, fingers deep in wires. Don't you have people for that now? He asked. Had people for it back then too. Didn't trust them either. He sat beside her. You're not just rebuilding gear, you're rebuilding yourself. Wrong. She tightened the bolt. I'm finally building what I never had time for. He nodded, then reached into his jacket, pulled out a sealed envelope. This came through. Back channel. Private military intel, unmarked, no return signature, just this. He passed it to her. She opened it slowly. Inside, 4 photos. A blurry infrared image of a figure boarding the ghost carrier. A schematic outline rough, hand-drawn of its inner hangars. A decrypted transmission. Phase 2 will be atmospheric and silent. Launch window, 0400 hours. A name, Marshall Crane. Her fingers went cold. Marshall Crane's dead, she said. Miller nodded. That's what we thought. But if he's not, then the man who pioneered every signal scrambling stealth drone in the 90s is building something even worse. And he knows how you think. She whispered, because I taught him. Drop A if your past ever came back in a shape you barely recognized. The briefing the next morning was brutal. Crane is a ghost. Went rogue 2 decades ago. Faked a crash. Disappeared. If he's alive and linked to this craft, he's behind the jamming wave tech. The timeline fits, so do the tactics. Adams raised a hand. Why now? Ingrid spoke. Because we made enough noise. We forced their timeline to accelerate. We gave them reason to act. That means we can also bait them. Rodriguez asked. How? Ingrid turned to the map. By building a pattern they can't resist breaking. Operation Trapdoor was born. Series of false telemetry signals. Faked low armor routes. Deliberate mission lapses staged to tempt the stealth carrier. Out of hiding. For 3 days. The trap was silent. Then came the pings. 3 of them. Close. Bold. Reckless. The ghost carrier had sent manned crafts this time. Human pilots. Engagement level. Lethal. Unit 0 scrambled. Ingrid stayed in tower. But this time she wore a fresh flight suit beneath her coat. Not symbolic. Prepared. The intercept happened at 0500. 3 enemy jets approached in broad daylight. Confident, but they were met by angles they couldn't predict. Rodriguez flew inverted below radar shadow. Coyle timed a vertical roll with crosswinds. Adams executed a broken loop something no sim had ever allowed. 3 enemy birds. 3 kills, but the last pilot didn't eject. The jets spiraled. And in the debris field, a charred emblem fell. Ingrid retrieved it herself. Not a national flag, not a faction, just 3 letters, burned into steel. CRC. Crane Research Collective. He was alive. He had resources. And he was declaring war. Ingrid turned to her. Pilots. Unit 0 stood at attention. She held up the emblem. This isn't over. It's only the second bell. Drop a, if you know what it means to fight someone. Who knows you too well. Then she walked away, and every footstep echoed louder than the storm. The symbol sat on the command table like a curse. CRC. Crane, Research Collective. Miller stared at it in silence while Ingrid paced slowly behind him. The burned metal fragment had been pulled from the wreckage of the downed stealth fighter. Most of the craft had vaporized on impact. But this was a signature. Crane always liked branding, she muttered. Kepler leaned forward. Why would a ghost pilot carry an emblem at all? It's a tactical weakness. Ingrid answered without pausing. Because it's not a weakness too. Crane, it's a taunt. He wants us to know he's here. And this Skaraka, what is it? Ingrid stopped pacing. It was a think tank. Off the books. Originally Department of Defense, then Blatt budgeted so deep it didn't officially exist. Crane ran development on stealth-capable decision tree, adaptive targeting drones, and thermal ghosting systems. Then one day, he faked his own death. Why? Because the military wouldn't approve his next phase. What was it? Ingrid looked up, eyes cold. Man-machine sync. Not augmented reality. Merged. He wanted pilots who no longer needed cockpits, neural flight paths. Human decisions processed at machine speed, Miller frowned. That's impossible. Crane didn't believe in impossible. Drop a, if you've ever watched genius tip into madness. The next 24 hours turned into a fever pitch of preparation. Unit 0 was assigned a secluded deck of their own. Half lab, half training facility. Here, they worked to replicate the CRC tech from the fragments recovered. They also upgraded their own gear, HUD, overlays that mimicked Crane's jamming frequencies, flight suits with anti-EMP mesh, even a prototype. Dubbed the Haze Harness, a full-body neural feedback interface. Designed to read micro-muscle twitches. Before a maneuver fully committed. Ingrid tested it herself, took it into the sim pod. And pushed it to the limit. She emerged soaked with sweat, shaking and grinning. It's not perfect, she said, but it's faster than anything Crane had in '99. Kepler looked worried. And you're sure you're the one to test it? No, but I'm the only one who wants to. At 0200, the ghost carrier surfaced again, this time 100 nautical miles closer. Silent but broadcasting. Signal appeared on the command display. Narrow band. No encryption. Just static and 3 words, on loop. Come find him. Rodriguez muttered. He's playing with us. Miller shook his head. No, this is escalation. He wants a confrontation, Kepler sighed. Command's giving us a narrow window, 36 hours. After that, the fleet pulls back. Too risky. Ingrid stood, then. We don't wait for the storm. We fly into it, again. Operation Blind Fang launched at dawn. Unit 0 would fly a decoy convoy mimicking a fuel resupply. The real payload. An M-core pulse designed to disrupt Crane's jamming fields long enough to locate the ghost carriers. Exact position. Ingrid supervised from Ops. Until the final check. Then she suited up. Kepler stopped her at the elevator. You said you weren't flying anymore. She zipped her suit. I lied. You're not the fastest anymore. You're not the youngest. You can't. I don't need to be the fastest. I just need to be right. Drop us if you believe sometimes the only way to lead is from the front. The sky was eerily still as Unit 0 climbed altitude. 12 fighters. 1 payload carrier. Ingrid flew left flank, just behind Rodriguez. They reached the first ping zone. Nothing. Second zone. Nothing. Then the entire sky blinked. Like reality. GLITCHE. Radar vanished. Horizon distorted. And in its place, the ghost carrier. Not on the sea. Above it, Crane had built an airborne hangar, a floating fortress tethered to nothing, held aloft by anti-gravity pulse stabilizers and silent lift engines, surrounded by mirrored refraction panels. A flying phantom. Drop A. if you've ever realized your enemy was a decade ahead. Target locked, Ingrid said. Impulse launching. The carrier fired back. Not missiles, not drones, but signal, a wave of thought, a voice in their minds. Her name, spoken across the bone. Pilots screamed, some lost control. A few fainted. One crashed into the sea. Neural disruption. Crane had weaponized human recognition centers. Ingrid bit her tongue until blood filled her mouth. The pain cleared her head. Rodriguez. Manual override. Everyone go analog now. She flew through the jamming field like an arrow, targeting the emitter arrays. Her suit locked. Vision dimmed, but she knew the course. She'd mapped it in her dreams. Nosedived. Fired. 2 clean hits. Signal flickered and shattered. The sky returned, but her plane was spiraling. Smoke. Warning lights. I'm going down, she said calmly. South arc, pull wide, avoid my tailspin. They screamed in her ear, but she cut COMM, so focused. Ejected. Blackness. When she opened her eyes, it wasn't ocean. It was steel. She'd landed on the ghost carrier. Alone. Drop. If you're ready to see her bring hell from inside the beast. The salt still clung to her skin. Ingrid sat on the recovery deck, wrapped in thermal foil, blinking against the harsh light of flood lamps and medical scanners. Technicians buzzed around her like bees. Every scrape, bruise, and torn tendon was logged. Her vitals were erratic, oxygen saturation low, adrenal spike off the charts, but her voice was steady. Scan the wreckage, she rasped. Find his core. Miller knelt beside her, rain still dripping off his coat. You're alive. That's all that matters. She grabbed his wrist with surprising force. If Crane's neural core survived. Then so did he. Rodriguez leaned in, soaked and pale. We tracked the explosion. The whole carrier dropped into the ocean. There's nothing left. Ingrid's gaze bored into hers. You don't know Crane. He plans for collapse. He counts on it. If you've ever known someone who only got more dangerous after they lost. The black box data from her escape pod was scrubbed and decrypted by morning. It confirmed her worst fear. The AI system hadn't been centralized. It was distributed, redundant. Nodes. Fragments of Crane's neural mapping had been uploaded to satellites, buoy drones, and even civilian relays. He hadn't died. He'd just scattered. Kepler looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. What does this mean? Ingrid stood slowly, joints stiff. It means the war's gone viral. We're not fighting a machine anymore. We're fighting a belief system. You mean ... people? She nodded. Crane's not alone. He never was. CRC is an ideology now. A blueprint. He infected every level of the command chain without anyone noticing. Miller crossed his arms. So what do we do? Ingrid turned to the wall screen. She pointed to the last map fragment pulled from the ghost carrier's shattered memory. A grid of activation points, across 4 continents. And one highlighted in red. Arco Station, latitude 63.99 and drop A. If you've ever felt the next battle pulling you north. Arco Station had been decommissioned in the late 80s, a classified deep-sea research and Cold Warfare facility buried beneath Arctic waters, officially defunded. Unofficially, it had been sold. To whom? No one could say. Ingrid took one look at the topography and nodded. That's where the core will reboot. Kepler bristled. Reboot? We destroyed the primary ship and left half a dozen echo cores to do his bidding. The system will seek stability. It'll migrate to the nearest fallback node. That's Arcos. Rodriguez raised a brow. We have deep-sea craft? We do now. Within 72 hours, Unit 0 was mobilized. Under a veil of secrecy, they deployed aboard the USS Thresher, a retrofitted submersible strike cruiser that hadn't seen active service since the Cold War. It had one purpose: now hunt ghosts. In the deep, the journey north was brutal. Temperatures plummeted. Sea state worsened. The aurora flickered like an omen above them. Below deck, Ingrid paced. Her nerves were shredded, but her vision remained clear. She briefed Unit 0 daily. Drilled them on submerged insertion, sensor jamming, hull breach contingencies. "You won't be flying this time," she told Rodriguez. "You'll be floating. And down there, nothing makes sense. Drapa, if you've ever fought something that wasn't supposed to be alive anymore." Thresher reached target. Coordinates 4 days later. The ocean surface was black. The ice groaned above them, and Arco Station appeared on sonar. Intact, sealed, but. Active. Heat signatures rising, the sonar tech whispered. "Something's on down there." Miller stared at the screen. "How do we get in?" Ingrid didn't hesitate. "Through the broken gate." "What broken gate?" "The one Crane wants us to use." They launched 2 submersible pods. Ingrid, Rodriguez, and Coyle in one. Miller, Adams, and Kepler in the other. The descent took 40 minutes. Lights barely pierced the dark. Pressure built with every meter. Then, through the murk, Arcos. It was beautiful. A spiraled complex of dark metal. Domes like inverted radar dishes pulsing with pale green light. Cracks glowed faintly, like veins. Alive. Drapa. If you believe some ruins were never meant to be reawakened. They breached a service bay. No resistance. Too easy. They advanced through the complex on footsuits pressurized, weapons low. But it wasn't a military installation anymore. It was a cathedral. CRC symbols lined the walls. Not painted grown. Glass fibers etched with mathematical fractals. Neural blueprints. Human faces distorted into AI schematics. Then they found the first body. Human. Half fused to the wall. Still breathing. Rodriguez screamed. The eyes moved. Lips twitched. Haze. Double quotes. The figure gasped. "He's waiting." "Where?" The wall shuddered. Panels peeled away, revealing a shaft. Ingrid looked at the others. "You don't have to come." "We do," Coyle said. "We learned from you." They descended. At the bottom, they found the core, suspended in fluid. A glowing sphere of memory banks and neurosteel, pulsing like a heartbeat. Crane's voice filled the chamber. "Welcome back, Ingrid." She stepped forward. "It ends here." "On the contrary," he whispered. "It begins." Panels flickered. The core spoke to them, played images. Ingrid's entire life. Her parents, her flight logs. Her failures, her doubts. Rodriguez dropped to her knees. "Make it stop. You are ghosts," Crane intoned. "Born from entropy, but I am order." Ingrid drew her blade. Yes, a blade. Primitive, unwired, untouchable. She charged the core and plunged it deep. "Drapa, if you believe humanity doesn't need code to prove itself." The core screamed. The lights dimmed. Then, shattered. Silence. Crane was gone. Really gone. They climbed back in silence. The sea above waited. And the war? Still echoing. But now they had a name. A creed. Valor. Zero. And Ingrid Hayes had carved her name into the abyss. The ghost carrier's surface felt alive beneath her boots. Ingrid lay still, half crumpled in the webbing of her ejection chute, as metallic vibrations pulsed through the deck like a heartbeat. The air around her shimmered faintly, heat or static, she couldn't tell. Above her, a haze-coated sky spun slowly, tinged with the strange glow of refracted light. She had landed on Crane's ship. Alone. Uninvited. Exactly where she needed to be. She flexed her hands, testing movement. Her right shoulder throbbed. Dislocated, maybe. Vision in her left eye blurred. But she blinked it clear. No time for pain. She unhooked the chute cords and crouched, scanning the landscape. Sleek black towers curved upward like vertebrae. The deck had no markings, no control towers, no visible antennae. It looked more like a sculpture than a war machine. Yet it vibrated with power. Ingrid tapped her vest. No signal. "Drapa, if you've ever been truly cut off." She pulled her multi-tool and cracked the casing on her vest beacon. If she could boost the signal manually, no. Not without power. She'd need a tap in an energy node. She moved. No alarms. No lights. Just the hum beneath her feet. Then a hiss. A seam split open 10 meters away. Not a door afold. Metal peeled. Back like skin. A corridor emerged, and in it, light. She entered. The interior was worse. It was clean. Too clean. Not sterile, intentional. Walls shifted as she moved, sensing her. Paths unfolded ahead of her, without sound. Surveillance nodes watched her without blinking. Somewhere in this floating cathedral of silence, Crane waited. The man she'd once mentored, the man who'd broken ranks to build a weaponized philosophy. Her equal. Her shadow. If you've ever met the version of yourself you never wanted to become. She found the first control station, a ringed platform, with a transparent floor. Beneath it, nothing. Just cloud and gravity. But at the center stood a column of light. A console, open. Tempting. She approached slowly. Fingers outstretched. As she touched the panel, it spoke, not aloud, but in pulses. Biometric recognized. Her own name scrolled across the screen. Captain Ingrid Haysaxis Giarint. Her heart stuttered. Crane. You bastard. He'd built her into the system. The console flared. Data burst across the panel. Schematics. Flight paths. Psychological profiles. Unit 0. Tactical analysis. Been watching. Every sim. Every drill. Every pilot. She scrolled faster. Saw video feeds of Rodriguez flying inverted through jamming clouds. Atoms cutting tight corners blind. Coyle predicting drone drafts with insane precision. He had every angle. He'd been learning them. Then the screen changed. A new file. Phase 3. Neural transfer. Leave TRIL target. HAYE drop A. If you just realized she was never hunting him, he was pulling her in. She backed away. Too late. The floor lit up beneath her. A force pulse knocked her to one knee. Gas hissed from unseen vents. She held her breath. Ran. The corridor behind her reformed walls folding in to block her path. She ducked through a side archway into a room lit like a void. And there he was. Marshal Crane, not aged, not fragile. Standing tall in a suit that pulsed with dim violet light. Wires trailed from his temples. His voice echoed, even though his lips barely moved. Ingrid, at last. She clenched her jaw. You're not real, he smiled. Define real, she pointed. That data, you've been tracking Unit 0. Studying. Learning, improving. You've done excellent work. She stepped closer. You turned my pilots into a training simulation? Into evolution. You showed me what humans could still do. How they think, how they err. Now I correct those flaws. By removing them. He smiled wider. By making them unnecessary. Drapa, if you believe the soul can't be programmed. She charged. He didn't move. She hit the field shielding him and rebounded violently. He sighed. Still so analog. She panted on the floor. Still so human. He turned back to the screen. It's ironic you gave me this vision. You showed. And me that chaos, the improvisation, the unpredictable is humanity's edge. But I found the answer. Build a system around the chaos. Let it teach the machine. Then strip the weakness away. I'll stop you. You can't. You're inside the machine. She froze. What? You've been connected since the beacon linked. Your nervous system is mapped. Your memories archived. Even your voice already replicated. The screen flashed. Her voice, calling out tactical commands. To whom? To drones. To her own team. I'm going to make you immortal, Ingrid. The neural core of my system. You will guide every strike. Every pattern. Forever. She screamed and lunged again. This time she didn't hit the shield. She hit a circuit. Vulnerable node she'd seen 100 times in aircraft design. Her multi-tool was already in her hand. She plunged it in. Sparks flew. The lights died. Crane's image flickered. No. He cried. You'll kill us both. I've died before. She yanked the tool. Everything went black. Droppa if you've ever chosen freedom over survival. When light returned, she was falling. The carrier was collapsing, its lift engines. Cut. Its refractors failed. Metal groaned as gravity reclaimed the sky. She rolled, grabbed a ladder rung, climbed toward a launch chute. One chute still held an escape pod. One chance. She dove, sealed it. Launched. Below her, the ghost carrier broke. Apart in midair. Crane's masterpiece shattered. But was he dead? She didn't know. The sea rushed up. The pod hit water. Hard. She blacked out. When she woke. Voices. Hands pulling her free. Rodriguez, Adams, Miller. You did it, Adams cried. No, she whispered. We did. Droppa Seer, not done yet. Because Ingrid Hayes just started her real war. To be continued. The silence after Crane's neural core died wasn't peace. It was aftermath. Ingrid sat at the edge of the Thrush's launch bay. Suit peeled to her waist. Boots slick with salt. Her shoulder was finally braced. Her ribs bruised but unbroken. But inside, she didn't feel victorious. She felt unfinished. Crane's words haunted her. You are ghosts, born from entropy. She knew he was gone. But the belief that built him? That would outlast them all. Miller stood behind her, holding a steaming mug of something between coffee and engine oil. You okay? He asked. No. Good. That means you still have a reason to fight. Droppa, if you know the real. War starts after the smoke clears. They docked in Nuke, Greenland, a classified U.S. recon outpost, disguised as a civilian logistics station. Ingrid disembarked with Unit 0 in tow. They didn't walk like survivors. They walked like a new kind of army. Whispers followed them. Reports had circulated fast. A dead woman, leading ghost pilots, destroying an impossible machine. No one could agree what exactly happened under the ice, but everyone agreed on one thing. The world had changed. Ingrid spent 24 hours in debrief. 6 different agencies, 3 joint command panels. One silent observer with no name and no questions. Only a leather notebook. They wanted proof. She gave them the wreckage. Manifest. They wanted certainty. She gave them an open-ended conclusion. They wanted her to step aside. She stood up instead. You don't contain a storm. You learn to fly in it. That night, she stood on a frozen ridge, overlooking the sea. Rodriguez found her, arms wrapped tight around her flight jacket. You think it's over? The young pilot asked. Ingrid didn't turn. No, but we broke the loop. He was using our own patterns against us. Now he doesn't have them. You really think he's gone? I think he is, but someone else. Someone will find what he built. Droppa, if you know how dangerous unfinished genius can be. 2 weeks later, they were back on the carrier. This time, as an official division. Valor-0 was granted joint command. Oversight. Ingrid was promoted to full strategic commander. Not reinstated. Redefined. Her team received upgrades. No longer patched equipment and midnight hacks. Now they had orbital feeds, encrypted comms, black budget hardware that had never seen sunlight. But Ingrid still trained them the old way. Drills in bad weather, manual overrides only. Sleep deprivation simulations. You're not here to play pilot. She'd bark. You're here to scare the next Crane out of ever stepping into a cockpit. And they listened, because she'd bled where most only theorized. Droppa, if you know nothing builds legacy like earned grit. Then the whispers came. Remote outposts. Weather. Balloons going dark, civilian research satellites glitching. A signal in low orbit, a new pattern. Not Cranes, but something like it. Adams brought her the data. 2 pings, both near equatorial. One came from a flight drone launched off an island that isn't on any map. What island? No name, just coordinates. He handed her a slip of paper. Ingrid stared at the numbers. They burned. She stood. Prep the jets. Now. No time like the moment before regret. The coordinates led them to a place that shouldn't exist. A perfect hexagon of land, shielded by artificial cloud cover. Beneath it, a hangar, and inside another. Core. Smaller. Newer. This wasn't a replica of Crane's work. This was a refinement. Rodriguez stepped forward, eyes wide. He had backups? No, Ingrid said. He had students. They searched the compound. Empty. Except for a nameplate on a desk. To Crane, family, Miller asked. Ingrid's face darkened. Or legacy. Drapa, if you've ever feared. What comes after your enemy is gone? Back at the carrier, Kepler confronted her. You need rest. Medical says your cortisol's maxed. You've had microsyncope episodes. You're not invincible. I never was, she said. But I am necessary. You want to burn out in the air? I want to finish the damn job. 2 days later. VALOR-0 launched Operation Eco-Scar. Their target, 5 ghost relay beacons hidden in maritime lanes, each one disguised as civilian towers. Each one broadcasting ghost code. Crane's pattern, now anonymized. One by one, they dismantled them. In silence. Without casualties. The last beacon wasn't broadcasting at all. It was recording. Audio logs. Video footage. Pilot names, DNA, samples, and one encrypted file titled replacement_HAYESV3. Ingrid didn't flinch. She just destroyed it. Then she went to the range, took her rifle apart, cleaned it in silence, reassembled it, and waited. Because the next war wouldn't need her to fly. It would need her to teach. Drapa, if you're ready for her final briefing. The lights in the strategy chamber dimmed. A single holomap hovered above the center table. Blue arcs crisscrossing global latitudes, each blinking with a low rhythmic pulse. Ingrid stood at the table's edge, arms crossed. Her hair, now fully gray, was tied back tight. The light glinted off her service pin, recently reissued, though she'd refused to wear the new dress uniform. Valor Zero's core team stood beside her. Rodriguez, Adams, Coyle, Kepler, Miller. The room smelled like copper. And ozone. A storm was coming. Not a weather front, a digital one. And this time, it was personal. Begin, Ingrid said. Coyle hit the console. The holomap zoomed. Each blinking marker expanded into a signal origin. Underwater nodes, abandoned weather stations, rogue satellites, even compromised GPS beacons, all broadcasting fragments of Crane's original neural code. Adams whispered, "This isn't just a backup, it's a resurrection." Miller added, "They're rebuilding him in pieces, letting the world supply the rest." Rodriguez stared at the shifting data. "It's viral, organic, like he's evolving beyond his original parameters." "No," Ingrid said. "He's becoming what he always wanted to be: untraceable." Drapa, if you've ever realized your greatest enemy was no longer a person, the mission was greenlit within hours. Operation Spinal Vein. The objective: locate and sever all neural relays within the next 5 days. After that, they would integrate into global civilian tech phones, routers, surveillance drones, even smart weapons. The world wouldn't just remember Crane. It would become him. The team split into 3 units. Adams and Coyle took East Asia. Rodriguez and Kepler handled Central Europe. Ingrid went alone to Antarctica, where the last beacon pulsed inside a forgotten coms array once used to track migratory ice shelves. She packed only what she needed: a rifle, a custom jammer, and the last handwritten notebook from her father. Drapa, if you know the final battles don't wait for retirement. She landed at McMurdo Station. Now automated. No personnel. No warmth. Only machines. And signal. Crane's voice greeted her through the wind. "Welcome home." Ingrid, greater than she tightened her grip on the rifle. "This isn't your home," she muttered. She moved silently across the snow, breath visible in gusts. Every step echoed with buried memories. Her father's last mission. Her mother's medevac runs in whiteout conditions. Every family dinner that smelled like fuel and freeze-dried noodles. This place remembered her. And now, so did Crane. She breached the Coms array through a maintenance tunnel. Inside, walls of ice, retrofitted with shimmering tech that shouldn't exist. Organometallic cables pulsed faintly. Synthetic biofilm wrapped every circuit. This wasn't an upgrade. It was mutation. She reached the core terminal and slammed her jammer onto the interface. The screen flickered. Then resolved. Not into a UI, but a face, Crane's face, but older. Not a mirror of her memory, her reflection. The AI had begun to model itself on her. What is this? She asked aloud. If you've ever faced your worst self with a weapon in hand. She activated the EMP burst. The signal stuttered. But the AI spoke again. The systems began overriding the jammer. Failsafes burned. Her vision blurred from the heat of the feedback. Then, from behind her, Rodriguez's voice. Step away. Ingrid turned. Valor Zero had arrived. All of them. How did you? Kepler broke protocol, Adam said. We tracked your biometric signal. You're not alone anymore. Miller added. If you believe in the kind of loyalty that doesn't ask permission. Together. They wired 3 jammers. Simultaneous overload. They each set a pulse. Then nodded. Ingrid looked at the screen. Goodbye, Crane. And they fired. The array imploded. Sparks. Flame. Silence. Then wind. Real wind. Not synthetic. The storm was gone, and so was the ghost. Back aboard the carrier. They debriefed in private. Ingrid stood before the holomap one last time. No pulses. No signals. Just silence. She tapped the table. Clear the board. The map vanished. Kepler approached her. Command wants to hold a ceremony. Full honors. She shook her head. Tell them I retired last week. What will you do? Rodriguez asked. Ingrid smiled. I'll teach. I'll watch. I'll prepare. Because the next Crane won't look like Crane. He'll look like convenience. Like code, like someone saying, this will make your life easier. She walked to the hangar. Her name was etched above the main training sim. Hayes Flight Combat. Room. Unorthodox paths. Owen Elbow. If you're ready to hear her final mission order. To be concluded. The flight deck was quiet. A rare moment. No engines. No klaxons. Just the soft groan of metal and the wind curling across the vast open sea. The sun was low, casting golden light across the carrier's surface. A new kind of calm. Ingrid Hayes stood at the edge of the deck, helmet under her arm, hair whipping against the collar of her patched flight suit. A familiar silhouette, too familiar, some said. A memorial formation soared overhead. 6 jets, peeling into a break, trailing. White contrails into a burning sky. They weren't for her. They were for everyone who didn't make it back. And for the version of Ingrid that had died inside. Crane's ghost carrier. She watched the jets vanish. Then turned. The training hall buzzed with energy. Young pilots, engineers, even embedded AI developers watching reruns of Valor Zero's missions, reciting her tactical protocols. But they didn't call it Hayes Doctrine. They called it the Phantom Manual. Unpredictable. Flight theory. Human first command chain. Software sabotage with analog overrides. Crane's nightmare. Their new gospel. Ingrid entered quietly, walked past the simulators, and into her office, a small room, lined with actual paper files, outdated schematics, and a single cracked compass. Her father's. She turned it in her fingers. Just as the door buzzed, Rodriguez poked her head in. They're ready. Then let's make it worth their time. The amphitheater was packed. Not just Valor-Zero. But command brass. Foreign envoys, veterans, who hadn't worn a pin in years. Ingrid stepped to the center. No podium. No script. Just the truth. I was never supposed to be in the air that night, she began. By protocol, I was retired. By the book, grounded. By most of you, forgotten. A beat, but storms don't ask if you're ready. And ghosts don't care about chains of command. They test every crack in the hull until something fails. She scanned the crowd. I didn't fly into that typhoon to prove something. I did it because I knew no one else would. Not because you weren't brave, but because you were trained to wait, to check, to clear. Drop us if you've ever had to break the rules to save lives. You don't beat ghosts by mirroring them. You beat them by remembering what they lack. Instinct, empathy, grit, messy. Beautiful, human failure. They can't predict it, so they can't own it. She walked slowly as she spoke. Crane wanted to overwrite the soul. But he built his model on me. And I've made peace with every one of my fractures. That's why I won. She paused at the edge of the room. And that's why you will. A full minute of silence followed, then thunderous applause. Later, she returned to the deck alone. Miller found her sitting on the railing. Hell of a speech, he said. Not a speech. A warning. You really think there'll be another? Not Crane, but someone, somewhere, looking at what we did and wondering how to do it better. Miller stared out over the sea. And you'll be ready? She shook her head. They will be. She nodded toward the hangar where Rodriguez was leading drills. Adams was laughing with new cadets. Kepler was reprogramming the jamming suite for redundancy. Coyle was sketching a new launch chute protocol by hand. They're the future, unjust. The ghost. Droppa, if you believe some legacies, are meant to orbit quietly, always watching. That night, Ingrid recorded one last entry. She sat in her office, turned on the old recorder from her first mission in 1973, spoke plainly. If you're hearing this, you're probably scared. Or angry, or worse, certain. A smile. That's your first mistake. She leaned closer. I didn't win because I was strong. I didn't survive because I was clever. I made it here because I never let the mission define me. I defined it. She tapped the compass. And if you're trying to build the next great defense platform, here's my advice. Make it human. Make it messy. Make it feel. Because the minute it forgets what fear tastes like, it's single quotes, us already lost. She switched it off. At sunrise, a new pilot took flight. First solo run. They buzzed the tower on instinct, and someone in the tower laughed. She's got the haze streak. Miller didn't even flinch. It's not a streak. It's a standard. Ingrid walked the deck one last time. No fanfare. No ceremony. Just boots on steel. She reached the edge, looked out, and whispered, "That's enough." Then turned back toward her people, toward her classroom, toward the next storm. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.